Kickstarter can help you obviously put a product out, and it could also destroy your image. Yes, I'll explain that in a second. So, what I wanted to do was, I graduated from college back in 2000, and I'm going to do that for the rest of the semester. So, I graduated with a degree in film, and I wanted to be a screenwriter. So I was doing screenwriting for a while. You were close when you said journalism, Aisha. Very close. So, I wanted to do screenwriting, and was writing screenplays, put them into competitions. I worked at a talent agency, got in front of a couple of agents. They liked what I wrote because I had talent, but really couldn't sell anything. So of course that was really frustrating. So I actually ran into the vice president of CBS, who's a Brooklyn College alum, and he gave me the advice to take my screenplays and make them into graphic novels, or at least into smaller comic books where you could sell producers on the imagery, instead of having to read large blocks of text from a nobody writer. Okay? So I did that. So I did a mini comic, then I did a mini comic. See, when I graduated from college, I did not think I would go into the area of comic books. So when people look at me, they either think I did get into counseling when I graduated, or I got into some kind of business or finance. When I tell them I do film and graphic novels, they think I'm lying. So, but it's actually been really rewarding, because if you have a product, if you have an idea, you're going to need a visual for it. So I did a couple of these graphic novels, these little short stories, and eventually a publisher contacted me and said they liked the concept of one of my books and they wanted to kind of print it. So I said, great, fantastic, went and I funded the entire creation of this book. It was a 96-page graphic novel. It's called Unmasked. I'll explain that in a second. Things didn't work out with the publisher, as things do happen, so I was left with a fully completed 96-page graphic novel. Wasn't sure what I was going to do with that. So there was a comic book site called Graphicly, or Graphic LY. Anybody heard of that? Okay. Anybody heard of Comixology? Okay, so nobody here's into graphic novels and comics, which is fine. They're a distributor. They're an online distributor. All right. Well, I didn't know about any of this stuff either, so I kind of had to do a quick learning lesson on a lot of this stuff. And as my artists tell me, I'm probably the worst guy that's working at comic books right now, because I don't know all the people that are in the industry, because I'm not fully vested in it per se. So I took the book, put it on this site called Graphic LY. Didn't really do anything with it. I called it a success. It sucks because I really didn't make any money. I got it out, which was great, but really nothing came of it. So I was kind of stuck in a situation where it's like, what do I do with this graphic novel and all the money that I'd spent on it, and it looked really solid? Kickstarter was the other way to go. So, in the summer of 2012, I went on Kickstarter and put out my graphic novel. And I was looking for $8,000, and I raised more than $14,000 in a 6-week time period. Stories about young journalists on a mission to unmask superheroes that have gone bad. So I wanted to take like the superhero genre and kind of flip it on its ear. We don't know who any of these characters are until she unmasks them. So here's some of the artwork. Here's some of the characters themselves. These are the heroes that have gone bad. So we don't know who any of them are until she kind of reveals their identities, right? So that appealed to a lot of people, obviously, because I had 359 backers. And again, a lot of this stuff is going to relate to you, and maybe the book part of it won't relate, but in terms of if you have a product and you're going to sell something, I think you need to see a lot of this, because beyond just the idea that it's a comic book or the story or whatever, the fact is that you have a product and you have a finished product. I had a finished product. That's what they liked about it the most, because when people go on Kickstarter, they have this product, but it's not fully finished yet. Now, you could do that if you want, and that'd be okay. But what I found was when this was a fully finished product, and I asked people, would you be interested in this? People were like, well, do you have to do any changes? Do you have to fix anything? I said, no, it's finished. And that's why people were, pledging to this left and right, because they didn't have to wait very long. Some people go on here and they've got like a graphic novel that they want to fund, but it's going to be another 1.5 years. Who the hell is going to remember if you pledge to something or not 1.5 years later, right? You would figure, why not, if you put your own money into it, but more times than not, a lot of people forget. Like sometimes I forget. When I back projects, I don't remember what I backed sometimes. because you haven't heard from them in so long. The other thing about Kickstarter is that you go and put in updates. So there's all kinds of stuff. You have to put in updates, that way people see that you're doing stuff, that you're being active. Without this, people are just going to think that, okay, you did this graphic novel and you don't really care, you just care about their money, and that's the other thing too that could turn people off. Right? See, I had a lot of content to show. I had t-shirts, I had a mask, I had posters. Oh, I hate these t-shirts though. Because it was such a small run of t-shirts that it would cost more money because it was a smaller run rather than doing a larger run. That's the other thing about this industry too, in terms of comic books, and this might relate to other people's areas. But some people that go on Kickstarter, and they've got a graphic novel and they want to fund 10,000 copies of this book because the distributor, called Diamond Distributor, right? They need a minimum of 10,000 copies of your comic book to put into comic book stores. Okay. Now, what happens is you may have that 10,000, copies at home, and you send them, but sometimes these comic book stores, they will not buy your book. So one guy actually went on here. He raised, I don't know, like $10,000, I think it was. Got 10,000 copies of his book printed. Only maybe half of them went to comic book stores all across the country. He was stuck with another 5,000 at home, collecting dust. Eventually what he did was, and I hate hearing the story, he eventually shredded them because he couldn't sell them. Somebody told me, you better know your market, you better know how this all works, because basically I didn't do that. I did short run. The most I thought I was going to print of this book was 500 copies of the actual graphic novel. And thankfully that's what I did, because if I did any more of that, I'd still be trying to sell them. I'd probably end up giving them away, which would be a complete disaster. But if you've got a Kickstarter project, and if you've got something that you want to promote, you have to have a lot of stuff available. I had 3 years worth of stuff. I had an interview with yeah, this is me looking stupid. There is an interview. Oh, here it is. I even got the vice president of CBS to do like an endorsement about it, because actually it's all his fault anyway. That I usually tell him. He works with David Letterman, and he wanted me to, like I had said before, make graphic novels because that was an easier way to get people to see it, blah, blah, blah. And then he did me a favor and was in this video. So when I did this video and he was in it, that legitimized my program. Not only that, but I had trailers, I had a webisode. I actually hired actors and actresses to be in a webisode, a live action webisode based on the characters in the story itself, which was pretty wild. When people found out, people were really kind of like digging it. I think Ted will remember who this guy is. This is one of Ted's former students right here from this class, and I actually met him from this class, I think it was.
Anybody know Khalid in this class? He's out in Hollywood making movies.
Yeah, now he is. Yeah, and at the time he was, I don't want to freeze it on his little stupid face, but basically, because he would kill me. He was looking for more work to add to his reel. I mean, he was an up-and-coming actor, and he needed more stuff, and I wrote a specific part for him. That wasn't in the graphic novel, but that was in this webisode. So when people saw that I was doing this too, they were like, what else? What else do you want? What else do you need in terms of proving that this was an important project for me? This is what happens with Kickstarter. A lot of people see Kickstarter as looking for easy money, like a quick snatch and grab for cash, or like hand me some money because I need help or whatever. Or begging for money. That's not what it's about. It's about if you've got a product and you can prove that you're really passionate about it, and other people can see that through all the content you can put on your page, okay, the more likely you'll have people backing your project, not because they're a relative of yours or maybe a friend, but you would actually get real fans, okay, of your work. And that's what happened with this. So I had, like I said, years worth of stuff, and I just hit people with it. There's all kinds of rewards. I had people being drawn, being unmasked by one of the characters. I had the t-shirts. I had movie-sized posters. I put a lot of stuff into it. So, did it work out? Sure. My thing was I needed only $4,000 to get the book printed. Okay? But my initial goal was $8,000 because what I had to take into consideration is mailing. And then the printing of all the extra stuff, like the mask and the t-shirts and all this other stuff. Some people, what they don't do is they don't think about that. They think, okay, it's going to cost me $4,000 to get these books in print, so I'll ask for like, let's say $5,500 or $6,000. No, because what's going to happen is you didn't plan enough for the international orders, the overseas stuff, the stuff that you have to have that buffer. So that's probably one of the most important things to think about. The other thing too is not to offer too much stuff either. So I'm going to tell you a horror story about Kickstarter. And if you guys want to talk to me more about that, about Kickstarter, I'm going to be doing a workshop at the end of the month about that, about Kickstarter. What was it called? Sluggers. Or Sullivan's. So there was a guy who did a project, there it is, okay. Now this particular guy, nice guy, he actually did help me tweet about my project, and I think I got quite a few people, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he was up for $6,000 and got $97,000. Wow. Right. How could you go wrong? Well, here's the problem. Mark, like I said, is a nice guy. What you do is stretch goals. Stretch goals are, if we get to a certain milestone, I mean, he wants $6,000. He said by the time we get 10, everybody will get this certain poster. Then when they got to 20, then you were going to get a hard cover of the book or whatever. He did that too much. So he spurred on, sure, almost $100,000 for this graphic novel that nobody ever heard about before. I mean, he was kind of established. What happened was he actually spent all that money and still didn't have enough money to ship the United States orders to people that live in the United States, because he lives in Hong Kong. Okay, he didn't have enough money. So this was 2 years ago. I still haven't received my copy of the book, and I might not. The reason why is because he wanted a hardcover of the book. He didn't factor in how much money it would cost. He went through a Chinese distributor, which is not a Chinese printer, because that's, when you look at comic books, if you go to a comic book store or whatever, a lot of these comics come from China, okay? It's easier to print out there. However, he didn't take into consideration the shipping it here. I mean, hardcovers are heavy, right? So, I mean, it's like shipping the pallets, where are they going? So, long story short is, he ran out of money, and only, how many backers did he have? He had,
2,800.
I mean, at least 1,000 people didn't get their books from the United States for sure. All right, so that was pretty bad, and it kind of damaged his reputation. What he did was, he actually went on another site called Indiegogo, which is another fundraising kind of website. Anybody heard of Indiegogo?
How do you spell that?
Indie, I-N-D-I-E-G-O-G-O.
Okay, like that.
Difference between Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Indiegogo, you can, what do you think? Indiegogo, right, you have, let's say, a month to raise a certain amount of money. So let's say he went on Indiegogo, won $6,000. Let's say he only raised $4,000, okay? He could still keep that money on Indiegogo. On Kickstarter, this is why Kickstarter, that's why everybody goes to Kickstarter, because it's do or die on Kickstarter. If you have a goal, like my goal was $8,000, but I only raised $7,000 and the project ended, the project fails, I don't get any of that money, the money goes back to people. That's tough. Okay. So what he had to do was, or what he did was, he went on Indiegogo to go and try to raise the additional like $5,000, $8,000 that he needed to complete sending stuff to people. And then when fans of this project found out that he was doing that, Indiegogo shut that down because it was a misuse of the, or it's just mismanagement of that. I mean, it's a rough story. I have to tell it because if people think they can go on Kickstarter and make, think that it's fantastic and it's great, there's also problems that come along with it too. So if anybody's thinking about using Kickstarter, go on their, their About Us. You have to check a lot of that stuff out. I mean, when I do this workshop, you'll probably, hear more about it. People do go on here for their music, for their artwork, for their clothing, for books and stuff like that. Not really for services. So if you've got an actual product that you're trying to sell, it's got to be a finite kind of project. It has to have a beginning, middle, and end. my project was already done in terms of the book itself, so all I really need to do is send it out there. It's not enough to be like, oh, this is a down payment for my new company that I'm creating. It could be. I mean, I had $6,500 in excess money from that first Kickstarter. What I did was I reinvested it back into another volume of Unmasked, which brings me to my current Kickstarter right now. So 3 days ago, I was looking for $5,500 for a shorter 60-page book, and I made $5,500 in like the first 2 weeks of a 1 month, time period. So I have 144 backers, which is great. If I end up getting 6 or 6,500, that's fine. But I only have, 144 people to make sure they get the book. Actually, a lot of people wanted it digitally anyway, so it's not 144, it's probably less than that. And the same thing like 2 years ago. What I did was, all the people that backed me the first time, I emailed them and I told them this is the next edition that we're doing. And some people wanted to jump on this. A lot of other people wanted to wait until Volume 2, because this is not technically Volume 2. This is something that's a placeholder in between. But, same thing, you have to have a lot of product, you have to have videos, you have to have trailers. One of the rewards that I have for this time around is that you can actually be drawn into the book. Which guy? This guy? Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, all these people, some of these people I actually know. So, you can be drawn into the book, you can have your name in the book, all this stuff. So you have to have really interesting and fun rewards, but you don't want to get too crazy about it either. Because my artist has to draw this, and I don't want to give him 150 people to have to draw, because then he would kill me. Have your name in the book, original artwork, have yourself being unmasked and all this other stuff, T-shirts again. The original artwork. So there's all kinds of stuff. There's a lot of planning. There's a lot of stuff that has to go into it. Again, this current Kickstarter, I was working on this for about 6 months before I actually made it live. Could I have waited? I could have, but I wanted to kind of get it out there and get this done. I would avoid doing Kickstarters during the holidays, though. I don't think that's a great idea.
Are there restrictions on what you can do on Kickstarter?
There is. Like, you can't have a reward for, $50 and you'll get a copy of the book and a card to Starbucks or something like that, or something like that. You can't do that. It can't be for, like services type deals. It's got to be something like you have an actual product. This is how you're going to fund it.
A music album, a movie.
Right, and a movie. Yeah. Now, here's another one. Now, here's a perfect example of. I just want to tell you a couple more things before I go to Veronica Mars. Anybody heard of Veronica Mars?
Yes.
Okay. Is that a show that you guys watched years ago?
Yes.
Because now it's apparently back with a movie that was created from a Kickstarter, I guess it was last year. They were looking for $2 million, they got more than $5 million. I think it's one of the highest grossing movie projects on Kickstarter ever. Incredible story. It was ridiculous. I mean, they were funded in like 2 days or something, maybe even a day. I don't even remember, but it was pretty quick. This is a finite project. Beginning, middle, end. Everybody got their rewards. The movie came out recently, I think short run in movie theaters, but it's on Apple TV now too if you want. I put in for a certain amount of money, but some of their rewards were, I mean, we're talking about Hollywood people, so if it's like, if you put in thousands of dollars, you'd be like a producer, or you'd be an extra on set, or you'd be on the runway, on the red carpet, or whatever. Like, there was some really interesting stuff. So if you've got something, a project, you have to think about what are the incentives, what are the rewards. And remember, the other thing too is the IRS, and I have to mention this, the IRS and sales tax, okay? You have to start thinking about this too. There's a gray area, so if you were to kind of funnel this money from Kickstarter into your own personal account, you better talk to your accountant first, because they're going to want to ask you, are you a sales tax vendor? Can you pay sales tax on the books that you sold? Now, but here's the gray area about Kickstarter, and it's still a gray area. All these rewards, like in my book, right? So if you were to get, let's say, $30, you wanted the actual book in print, all right? Are they paying sales tax on that? And if they are, in New York, if they are, how much, am I going to tell the government, right? So you have to start thinking about some of this too. The gray area is that this is a pledge, not a sale. Okay, so you don't necessarily have to pay sales tax. Unless you make more than $20,000, and I think that's when the IRS wants to come and talk to you. Because what happens is with Amazon, because this is tied in with Amazon and Kickstarter, Amazon and Kickstarter combined take about 5 or 10% of your gross. Okay, so they're going to take that right off the bat. If you make more than $20,000, you get a W-2 at the end of the year, and you better show that to your accountant. What you should do is, what I did the first time around was I funneled that money through my own personal account. I didn't really know any better. It's fine. It worked out fine, but this current Kickstarter I've got is going through my own LLC. So if you guys are really interested and serious about business and want to protect yourself, LLCs are kind of the way to go. They're a little expensive, but it might be worth the investment. For me, it is right now.
When do you get into an LLC? Like
When should
you know,
you?
even if you just started, when you first start a business, even if it's like a really tiny one,
Well,
should you
It
start?
depends what kind of business it is, and I guess you read the chapter of the book talking about with a solo partnership or an LLC. Sometimes it has to do with making money, sometimes it has to do with liability. If you're opening up a nightclub or a construction company, you don't want them to go after you personally.
Right.
I'm not sure here, maybe they'll throw the comic books at your head or something.
Right.
Maybe
yeah, I
you
mean,
won't
there
see.
was no real legal issue unless they were mad about something. I mean, there was no real legal issue, but just it would be smarter just to protect myself. So I created my LLC last year. It did cost quite a bit of money, but it was still worth it. I went through an attorney in the city. And I kind of sat on it for a little while because I wasn't ready to do anything with it, but I had it, so I formed it, so that's great. Now, when I was ready to do this new Kickstarter, I don't remember when I started it, it had to be like March 7th or something like that. The LLC was already in place, so all this was going into the LLC bank account. All right, so again, I mean, there's a lot of the technical aspects of this too. So not only is it the creative stuff, but it's also the financial stuff that you really need to think about. All right, so it takes a while, but I mean, again, I'll talk more about it at Magnuson if you guys are interested, and I do want to try to do a workshop at the end of this month about it to go a little more into detail.
Right, so to just summarize, it's not, how does somebody find out about this comic book?
Well, yeah. Well, here's the other really major thing about all this is that you need to go on a widespread social media campaign. I mean, we're talking, and not spamming people too, because that's the other thing. I mean, how many times do you gotta tell people, check out my next Kickstarter for blah, blah, blah. And people are gonna be like, who cares? They're not gonna wanna hear any more about it, right? You have to have strategic posts, especially if you use Facebook and Twitter. And you gotta get other people to tweet about it, all right? You have to have it on LinkedIn. I mean, I did all kinds of stuff. I had other people that were doing their own projects, like Mark from the Sullivan Sluggers. He shared the word with all his backers. The more and more you do that, the more and more word gets around. The other thing too is, and my personal feeling is, the first time I did my first Kickstarter, I got $8,000 in the first 2 weeks of this, what was it, 6-week campaign? So in the first 2 weeks, when people saw that, I made not only the Kickstarter front page, but also the most popular and all this other. When people saw that, and the people that run New York Comic Con saw it, they retweeted about it too, which got me even more backers. So it was a bit of a slow climb, but I mean, that first $8,000 was really important. And if you could get your goal and get your goal really quick, that just shows that this is a product that people really want. Here's the other little thing about that too. You better have some money on the side, a couple of $1,000s that you might want to throw in yourself. You can't back your own project, but if you had some people, let's say a family member or whoever, that would be willing to drop in $500 or $1,000 just to kind of spur it on a little bit more, that does help. You should have that. That's strategic in my mind. Because if your Kickstarter is dead for like days and weeks, I mean, you're in trouble. I mean, you're in trouble. That's why I made a big push to get this thing funded within the first like 2 weeks. Within the first 2 weeks, I already had the $5,500. So. And it really hasn't gone anywhere since. I've been sick last week, and it's going to pick up again with the last 3 days, because then I have this graphic. I don't have it here, but I have it on my Facebook. It says, final days, you know, all this other stuff. It all depends on your wording, too. When I emailed the people that backed the Kickstarter the first time around, I told them We'd love to have them return, be a part of this again. It depends on how you word it. You want to make them feel special, and quite a few people did come back.
Was the majority of those 140 backers for the second project people who were part of the first one?
Yeah, quite a few. I haven't done the numbers yet, but I would say maybe half. But that's good because the other half are brand new people that missed it the first time. So I've had some people say that. And I think the reason why this is a little bit smaller is, well, for one, it's 60 pages. Now, if I would have came back with a 150-page book, it would have been a lot more. So, yeah, that's it. But if you guys have any questions or concerns, come and talk to me about Kickstarter. We can probably talk a little
Any
more about it.
questions for Mike before we move on? Go ahead,
Yeah.
Ron.
I heard you say that every backer, depending on how much they invest, they get a book. I mean, what's the endpoint as far as pushing out to actually market it out to the public? I mean,
To the public. All right. So some of the things that I'm doing is the other thing I forgot to mention is that the first Kickstarter got me noticed by USA Today. So I'm featured in USA Today every Monday, certain pages from the first volume. But it can go on Amazon.com, and then I go to trade shows, like New York Comic Con, or go to another show in Long Island. I wanted to keep it a small run because, again, people will see it more valuable because if it's in high demand, but there's only a few printed. Whenever I do these Kickstarters, that's where you get the book, is through these Kickstarters. That's why the Kickstarters are so important to kind of go and jump on to get a hard copy of the book. So there's not a lot. I didn't want to do the 10,000 copy run because then it would have been a black hole of money. I've never been able to make that money back.
So you're never going to go the conventional route of actually pushing out content?
If I get picked up by Marvel or something, or a company like that, then that could be possible, but that would be on their end. For me, being an entrepreneur by myself, self-publishing this, no, I couldn't do anything massive. Yeah, yes.
This makes it more exclusive for you.
Yes.
Got it.
Which is right, which is why I put the exclusive in there, and that's why we've had so much luck. I've raised more than $20,000 now for this series because of that. Anyway, but I'll definitely talk to you guys